Hi everyone, welcome to Compile Codes. Let's get started. So in the last session, we had learned about HTML and CSS basics. In this session, we'll discuss about JavaScript basics. Okay, so let's get started. What is JavaScript? It's a high-level interpreted programming language that enables dynamic behavior on web pages. Developed back in 1995 by Brendan Eich while working at Netscape. It was initially named Mocha and then LiveScript and then finally JavaScript to align with the popularity of Java at the time. JavaScript is a versatile language used for both client-side and server-side development. It allows developers to create interactive web pages, build APIs, and even design full-fledged applications using frameworks like Node.js. So key features, it's a lightweight and flexible programming language, easy to embed into HTML, supports multiple programming paradigms like procedural, object-oriented, and functional programming. Interpreted language runs directly in the browser without requiring compilation. So it is able to run on a browser because every browser has this JavaScript engine. Like in case of Chrome, there is V8. In case of Mozilla Firefox, SpiderMonkey. In case of Internet Explorer, I think Chakra. So these are the JavaScript engines embedded into browsers. So just to show you quickly. So this is our browser, and this is the last thing that we had created in the last session, right? हमने एक header simple header बनाया था. Now what I did, I just opened Chrome Developer Tools. Let me go to console, and this is where you can write a JavaScript code. So let's say and you can print this on console. Just type in name and that's it. You see, this is printed on console. Okay. So it's a JavaScript code. If you, it's a JavaScript console. If you type anything, even add, will show you things. So we'll work with Chrome Developer Tools. We'll also work with our VS Code. Let's get back to our presentation. So runs directly in the browser. You already saw that. Event-driven response to user interactions such as clicks, inputs, and more. Cross-platform runs on virtually all devices. Okay, we'll discuss all those things. Just a little bit of background and history. So started back in 1995. Brendan Eich developed this called Mocha, and then later, finally, was called JavaScript. And there are a bunch of different versions. This is the latest version, 2015, which is also called ECMAScript 6 or ES6. So ECMA is basically an organization which defines standards for JavaScript. Okay. So in ES6, there were a lot of features introduced like let, const, arrow functions, modernization, etc. So we'll discuss all those things. So this is a bit of history and background. In 2005, Ajax revolutionizes web applications by enabling asynchronous server requests. Okay, 2009 Node.js was introduced. So yeah, enough I think for the theory. Let's head back to our code. So in the last session, what we had done is just created this header. Okay. Now what we'll do, we'll just embed JavaScript here. So at the last of the body, as I had explained in the last session, that we always try to put script at the last of the body because you want to render your view first and then the logic. So basically all the logic, how your application is going to behave, how on the interaction when user interact with the application or website web page, how it will behave, that logic goes into script eventually. Okay, so you can just type in console.log just to see whether it is embedded or not. Let's say hi compile quotes. Okay, save it, go back to your browser, control plus shift plus I, you can see hi compile quotes. Maybe there are extra spaces. Yeah, fine. So it is working. So there is one way to add the script, which is this, and the other way, which is more appropriate way, is having a separate file, not HTML, sorry, index.js, and you can have the same code here and just mention that file, which is index.js. Save it. You'll not see anything because I have not put the content. Here you are. Okay. So this file is embedded into this index.html file. If you go to network, you can also see that how these pages are loaded. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Yes. Once I reload this, you can see first this index.html is loaded, and then this is loading the resources, all the resources which are attached, resources or files or whatever linked to this file. Index.js is loaded in the last because it is added in the last of the body, and this file is going to be read by the browser from bottom to top. Okay, ठीक है, तो ये हो गया आपका embedding of JS. Now let's get started with the JavaScript basics. ठीक है, so we'll start with variables. So JavaScript, uh, in order to define variables in JavaScript, JavaScript is basically a dynamic programming language. What it means is you don't have to specifically mention data types. For example, if I, let's say, let name as compile codes, and I want to print this here. Okay, let's say I print this. I print this name on the console. It's printing right now. So I did not define any data type, whether it's a string or it's a number. You just can simply define any variable by using let or var or const. You can also use var. Let's say you define a paragraph. This is a paragraph, and you just sorry, you just log this paragraph, save it, and you see this is also logged. And same you can do for, you can define it using const. Let's say age, which is maybe 30, and print this also 30. Okay, this console.log methods, you can have as many params as you can, arguments you can pass into this log. Okay, uh, like this, you don't need all these separate methods, and it will just log it. Compile codes, this is a paragraph 30. ठीक है. Now what I was telling you, that in order to define variables in JavaScript, you don't need to mention data type specifically, and that is why it's a dynamic programming language. You can also change the data type at any point of time. So let's say I can also mention age to anything. It doesn't not, sorry, because it's a constant. Let's say it was let, then you can change the age to anything also, and you can see how this type will change. So let's say if I log something here, and here I will log type of age, and here I will again log type of age. Okay, so here it will show number, and here it will show string. Let's check that. See, first it is showing number, and then it is showing string. ठीक है, इसे स्ट्रिंग लिटरल भी बोलते हैं। Okay, so that's about it. You just saw that I was trying to change a constant. So let's say this age is not let not defined by using let. Let's say const use करके हमने इसको define किया है. So later you cannot change this. ठीक है? If I try to change this and let me log it on the console, what happens? See, assignment to constant variable, it is showing throwing error. So constant, you use constant to define any variable when you want to declare a variable which is not going to be changed. ठीक है? Let or var essentially same. The only difference is the scope. So let was actually introduced in ES6, and the differences they have is with respect to scopes. So var is a function level scope it has, and let has the scope of block level. ठीक है, scopes भी हम discuss करेंगे further, but for now you can understand that this is it has function level scope and let has block level scope. So there could be some cases where this declaring variables using var can lead to some of the bugs. So that is why it is recommended to use let, but you can use both, right? Okay, so variables हो गया. Now functions. Functions, you can declare functions in two ways. One is you can declare using the function declaration. So this is called function declaration. This is how you mention comment into JavaScript by using double forward slashes. ठीक है? So let's say this function takes two argument and returns the addition of these two number. That's it. You can call this function or maybe log it on the console, add and just pass numbers. Let's say 2 and 3, which should return 5, right? So देखते हैं इसे. We go to, okay, we are still changing this. Let me remove all of it. ठीक है? It is returning 5. The same function can be done by using this declaration called arrow function. Arrow function. So what you can do is instead of having this function keyword, you use this arrow, and let's say you can declare, let's keep it square, and you just pass one number in case of square, and it has to be multiplied by itself. ठीक है? So this is how you can declare an arrow function. ठीक है? If I copy this and whole square with a number, let's say 5, it should return 25. ठीक है, इसको सेव करते हैं, चेक करते हैं. This is returning 25. ठीक है, so these are the two types of functions declaration. Either using this method or this way you can declare a function. ठीक है, now I'll just quickly explain what is a scope. Scope is nothing but कोई वेरिएबल आप डिक्लेयर करते हो तो किस रेंज में उसको एक्सेस किया जा सकता है. That will be its scope. So let's say if I declare anything here, let's say name only, compile codes. So this name is accessible globally, so the scope of this variable is global. If I declare any variable inside a function, let's say I declare something here, let anything, let's say if I declare any constants, and let's say constant pi 3.14, and I try to access this outside console.log and pi. Will I be able to access this variable outside? Let's check this out. No, see, pi is not defined, right? But अगर मैं यही चीज यहाँ पे करता सो हो जाता ये, ठीक है। सेम चीज अभी इसका जो स्कोप है that was global, so you will be able to access this variable outside and even inside any function because this the scope of this variable is global, right? Let's see if you log it here. See, it is showing from, you can here you can also see the number, line number from where it is getting logged on the console. Same thing, you can just log it outside the function and see still it is printing at line number 9. Okay, so these are the scopes. There is one more thing called DOM manipulation, so let's just understand that a little bit. So DOM, what is DOM? First, let's just understand. DOM is a document object model. When you write an application, when your HTML file is opened into a browser, what your browser does is create a structure with it creates an inherent structure with the elements of the HTML elements that you have created, and that is called DOM, document object model. And you can manipulate this DOM using JavaScript. How do you do that? Just how you do it directly in the HTML, you can do it from JavaScript as well. For example, let's come here and add one section. Inside this, let's add a paragraph and mention this is a paragraph. You save it, go here, and you see there is a paragraph. The same thing you can do, you can manipulate this element from JavaScript as well. How you can do that is just define ID, which is, let's say, paragraph ID, and inside this script, let's just delete everything, and what you can do is document dot get element by ID, and then you mention the ID, which was paragraph ID, and you can keep it inside a variable, which is, let's just keep it p. And what you can do is you can set the content of this paragraph by using this text content. This is a paragraph. You save it, you go back to your browser, and you see this is the paragraph is rendered, even though there is nothing inside this. So what you're doing, you're doing DOM manipulation. You are changing the content, or maybe adding. You can also create these elements. How you can do that is just by, let's say, what you can do is you can declare a function. Function declaration, I will have add paragraph, and then let's just have a constant, maybe document dot create element, and you can mention the element which you are creating, and then you can do this. Just bring this code here, remove this. So you created, oh, I did not mention the name of the variable, and also this keyword is wrong. Also, one more thing, while declaring any variable name, you make sure you do not use any keywords. Okay, keywords mean any already registered keywords, which are like if, else, for, all these keywords you should not use. Okay, so you created an element, you assigned it to a variable, and then you are doing this. You're changing the content of this, adding the content of this element, And then what you can do, you can just append this to maybe body. So append child, and what you need to append is p. You save it, you go back to your browser. Okay, I did not call this function. So this happens a lot. So whenever you declare a function, make sure you call that function. Go to your web page, and you can see again this is rendered. So this is a basic example of DOM manipulation. You can do it uh, for many different elements, for buttons, for titles, and so on. ES6 features, some of the features we already discussed, like the difference between constants, var and let. The var is this is function scope, and this would be block scoped. Okay. Not much any other difference. You can use both to declare variables. Destructuring also one of the feature which was introduced in ES6. ES6, let's say destructuring, I would say, which is, so let's say if you have an array, maybe 30 and name, let's say because what you can do is you can destructure it by separating these values into separate variables. So let's say I can have this into age and name, and this can be assigned, the array can be assigned to this destructuring element. Okay, so how you can access it later is just by assigning this, logging this on the console. You can check this age will be logged. Same thing you can check for name also. See why I'm showing you this destructuring we are going to use a lot in React also, this feature of AS6. Okay, so this is array destructuring. Similarly, you can destructure for object also. I will just bring this code and explain you. So here you can see there is an object which has property name and age, and then it is destructured like this. So in case of array, you use this square brackets to destructure. In case of object, you use curly brackets. ठीक है, और person को assign कर दिया है वापस से इसको, और फिर you can use this. If you try to log this, you can see okay, name यहाँ पे duplication हो गया, इसको हटा देते हैं. अब देखते हैं. ठीक है, Alice और 30 log हो गया है. ठीक है. So this was all about variables, yes, 6 features. Now let's discuss a little bit about async, await, and promises. So async await, let's just first discuss about promises. What is promise? So a promises in JavaScript is an object representing the eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation. Okay? Promises allow us to write cleaner asynchronous code without getting trapped into callback hell. So asynchronous and synchronous, what it means? Synchronous means you are calling a function once another operation is completed. So you are calling one by one. One operation is waiting for other operations to be completed, then the second one will be started. That is a synchronous calling. Asynchronous means they can start as they can work, they can start parallelly. They don't have to wait for all the other operations to complete. So that would be asynchronous call. Okay, so what promises does here is it eventually helps us representing the eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation. Okay, it helps in case of asynchronous calls. Now, the states of a promise are 3 states basically: pending, fulfilled, and rejected. For declaring a promise, how you can do that is just, let's say, I would say my promise and I can declare using this promise, and this will take two arguments. Let's call it resolve and reject, and then let's make it an arrow function. So what you can have is you can just indicate, let's say I can call operation successful, and only for reject I can mention operation failed. Okay, this is how you can do it. And in what scenarios it will run. So let's just declare a variable by ourselves which is success, and let's say that is true. Okay, now if call this function if success is true. Okay, and else just call this function. That's it. So this is a promise. And once you, if you try to log this on the console, it will return a promise. If you log this my promise, it will log only a promise on the console. So you can see promise it is logging and it is saying fulfilled, operation successful, because success is true. If we set it to false, operation field will be written. Okay. This is also saying uncaught in promise. It is saying that because this promise is yet to be caught or parsed, you can say that. So how we do that is we use these functions called then and catch. Okay. How do you do that? Any function, any object, I mean anything which returns a promise, you can use then function for that. And then what you can do is just have this result. Let's log this on the console. Let's say if I try to log result, and then what it will log, because right now it is false, let me set it to true. So it will log operation successful because it will be calling this resolve, right? Now once you have called this, you can also catch it for throwing errors, right? So how do you do that? Console.log, let's say errors, and that's it. Okay, let me remove this, and you can see that it is logging operation successful. So this is how you do it. You declare a promise, and then by using then and catch, you handle this. You can also use the chaining of this then function, right? You can again have a then function, and what you can have is you can try to, sometimes you need to parse this. So you can have rest.json, something like this. I will better show it in with an example. So this promises or asynchronous calls, इसकी जरूरत mostly कब करती पड़ती है? In case of backend calls. So when you make an API request from client, so client is your UI, जो आप client is your this UI application which you are working, and backend server, let's say you are interacting with the backend server, you are trying to make a request to an API which can take some time. It can take maybe a second or more. तो ऐसे कॉल्स को हैंडल करने के लिए हम asynchronous कॉल का यूज करते हैं, because let's say you are doing many things in your application and there are lots of API calls are made from client to backend. So you are not going to wait for each and every call. So you will make all those call parallelly. All the calls are not waiting for each others. So that is why you use this asynchronous calling. And how do you do that is using async await also. So async await is nothing but it simplifies working with promises. Okay, how do you do that? First of all, there is a method called fetch, which eventually interacts with the backend and call an endpoint. So you can mention here any URL or endpoint, and this will try to fetch the data from this endpoint. So, and it will return a promise. It will return a promise. I will show you. So let's have one uh, test server. So this is a mock server. This is a mock or test server which you can use. I also use this called JSON placeholder. If you go to this, first just let me show you what it is. So it is a free, fake and reliable API for testing and prototyping. ठीक है, यहाँ पे आपको fake APIs मिल जाएगा और you can use all these resources, posts, comments, albums, and so on. So how you can do that? Just go to URL, type /posts. You'll see all these posts are available. Okay, so let's try to fetch this. Let's just copy this, go back to our code and try to fetch this. If you try to check this, this will also return a promise. You can see that. So let's log this on the console data. You save it, you go to your browser and your app, you see it is returning a promise which is in pending state. ठीक है, state भी यहाँ पे mention हो रही है. It also has the response, which is just showing the endpoint URLs and all. So how do you parse it? आपको इस endpoint को call करना है, इसको call करने के बाद उसको parse करना है, ठीक है? All those things you'll have to do. And how you do that? One way is to use then and catch, like I just saw you, right? You can do like, let's say, how do you do that? Let's say this data is returning a promise, right? So you can use them. Then maybe you can have something like result, and this result can be maybe just return result.json, and once it is returned, again try to have this on the console. So here we can have console.log, and you can just log the response. Let's just check if it works. You see it's working, right? You are able to see 100 posts. If you want to open it, you can open any of the posts which will have these properties: body, ID, title, user ID, that just like you're seeing here. Okay, so this is how you can call it. I mean, you can destructure it or parse it. This is one way. Another way is using async await. So how do you do it is, let's just say you declare a function. I will call it fetch posts, and just as you call this here, let me call this inside, and this will be an async functions. So for declaring an async function, you just mention async async before the function. ठीक है, in case of arrow function इसको कैसे करेंगे declare? ये let's say इसका नाम आपने रखा है fetch posts, ठीक है? This there has to be a keyword for declaring a variable. इसको equal कर लो, यहाँ पे एरो डाल लो, ठीक है? और इसके जस्ट पहले यू कैन मेंशन async, ठीक है? सो दिस विल बिकम एन एसिंक फंक्शन. तो दोनों दिखा दिया आपको कैसे फंक्शन डिक्लेरेशन या एरो फंक्शन करना है इन केस ऑफ एसिंक. ठीक है, अगर ये एसिंक फंक्शन नहीं करोगे तो क्या होगा मैं बताता हूँ. but let's just keep it here and await, we can use it here. ठीक है, ये करता क्या है? इट्स जस्ट सिंपली वेट्स फॉर द रिस्पॉन्स. ठीक है, जब इसको फुलफिल हो जाएगा, जब कंप्लीशन हो जाएगा इसका, देन इट विल असाइन द रिटर्न टू दिस वेरिएबल. ठीक है, यहाँ पे डेटा आ गया. फिर व्हाट यू कैन हैव इज जस्ट यू कैन हैव लेट्स से वन वेरिएबल कॉल्ड पोस्ट, और इसमें क्या कर लो आप, डेटा को पार्स कर लो. ठीक है, फॉर दिस ऑल्सो यू विल हैव टू अवेट. ठीक है, Now you can just simply, my bad, log it on the console, save it. Let's go to our code. Data is not defined. ये इसको remove कर लेते हैं. Save it and fetch posts को कॉल करना हम फिर से भूल गए हैं, तो fetch posts को कॉल कर लेते हैं. ठीक है. See, you are able to see all the entries. How it is happening? Let's just discuss it again. ये fetch क्या करेगा? डेटा को fetch करेगा इस एंड पॉइंट से, और उसके बाद सिंस अवेट लगा हुआ है इसके पहले, दैट मीन्स कि जस्ट it will assign this to the variable data only when it gets receives the data from here, right? The operation, it will assign the data uh, to the variable data only after the completion of the operation, or either completion or rejection, whatever. So it will wait for the completion or rejection. That is why we are using await. Same here also happening. If I remove this await, what you will see, we will just go to here. It is again, it is returning this pending state. It is not waiting. So we are just after fetching this, just after that we are assigning this to post. We are not waiting for the response. So that is why it is returning, showing promise in pending state. You can even see the state is fulfilled and it has an array of 100, but this post is not having the actual data, right? Here you see this post is not having the actual data. If I show it like this, or maybe like this, ठीक है. इस दोनों डिक्लेरेशन में फ़र्क क्या है? इसमें बस फ़र्क ये है, जैसे मैंने बताया था कि console.log can have as many as arguments as you want to show, right? So in case of this, it has 2 arguments. In case of plus, it has just 1 argument. That's the only difference, nothing else. You can use both or logging it on the console based on your use case. So ठीक है. पोस्ट क्या कर रहा है यहाँ पे? इवेंचुअली इट्स अ प्रॉमिस, बट इफ यू वेट फॉर दिस, you will again have the posts. Again, if you are using await, this function has to be prefixed with async, otherwise it will give you an error. यहाँ पे ही error देने लगा. See, await expressions are only allowed within async functions and at the top levels of modules. ठीक है. So इसीलिए यहाँ पे इसकी ज़रूरत है हमें. So ये हो गया आपका async await. This is how we'll also going to make mostly this is how we are going to make calls when we'll learn about React also. So this is by far you make a call to backend. Okay, you use this fetch function and pass it the endpoints. You wait for the response, you parse it, and then once you get the response, you manipulate the data, use it, consume it, however you want to do it. ठीक है. तो ये हो गया async await. And you can also, I also explained you promises. You can also chain the promises, and this is pretty much all the basics about JavaScript that you need to know before starting onto React. JavaScript में और भी बहुत सी चीज़ें हैं जो you learn as you go in this course with React. ठीक है. बीच बीच में जब भी कुछ ऐसा आएगा JavaScript में जो कवर नहीं किया है मैंने, that will be covered in the course itself. But for now, you are good with the basics. At least you are good to go with the React course. You know everything now with the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript basics. So in the next session, we'll start with React. Okay.